When you're ready to begin winding your pickup, you need to gather the following materials. You'll need a pencil, a little bit of scrap paper, two circles that are 1 inch in diameter cut out of some thin cardstock, or we actually have these cut out of pieces of clear plastic. Two of those. You're going to need your magnet. We actually are going to stack 2 magnets together in order to get enough height for our pickup here. We need the winding wire, which is 42 gauge enameled wire. It's a special wire that you need to make sure that you use so you get enough windings in a small enough space. We need a very, very fine wire. And a little bit of crazy glue. The first step is to make the body of our pickup by putting a dot of crazy glue in the middle of one of our circles and attaching the magnets to the center of that circle. Once your magnet has dried onto the first circle, you're going to want to attach it to the other circle. Put a dot of crazy glue in the middle and set down that first assembly on top of the second. Try to make sure things are lined up as center as possible. The finished assembly should look a little bit like a spool that you would put thread on, or maybe like a yo-yo. The wire that we're going to use for winding our pickup is 42 gauge enameled wire. It's about as thick as a human hair and very much less strong than a human hair. We need about a foot of it as a lead that's going to come out of the pickup. We're eventually going to solder a thicker wire onto this, but we need to wind this up in the meantime. So I'm going to have you take it and wrap it around a pencil. So take about a foot of wire and wrap it around a pencil to make it nice and tight and small. Slide that off the end of the pencil. You should have a little coil of wire there. And take a very small piece of tape and tape it to the outside of your pickup on one side. It doesn't really matter which side. Make sure any little tape that you have hanging over the edge of the circle is either folded back or cut off and out of the way, or that's going to hang up on your wire as you begin to wind. Then we have to wind the pickup. We're looking for about 1,500 wraps of wire around this magnet. That will ensure that there will be plenty of loops of wire for the field lines of the magnet to cut through as the string wiggles and induce a large current. So there's no good way to do this. It's frustrating, it's slow and tedious, and that's the only way that it can be done. If you're doing a good job, this will take you about a half an hour. But if you get in a hurry and make a mess and have to start over again, it's going to take you much longer. If you break the wire, it's going to take you much longer. So do this in a slow and methodical fashion. Hold the pickup and keep your hands directly over the spool. You want to do this, otherwise the wire has a tendency to snag on its way off of the spool and you might break it. So keeping your pickup directly over the spool, just simply begin winding. We are going to wind like this until we have wrapped 100 wraps. There's no fast way to do it. Simply go slow and steady, nice and easy, counting as you go until you get to 100. When you've completed 100 wraps, stop. For 2 reasons. First, make a mark on your sheet of paper to indicate that you've completed 100 wraps. It's easier to do that than it is to keep in mind how many wraps you've done. The second thing you want to do is stop and inspect your spool. Make sure that there aren't any errors, that you haven't inadvertently wrapped around the outside of the spool, or that there isn't anything else funny going on. It's much better to stop every 100 and inspect. If you've made a mistake, you can back up 100 wraps fairly easily. If you don't stop and you need to back up 400 wraps, that's a big problem. It's also a good idea every time you stop to switch the side of the pickup that you're holding onto so you can wrap evenly the wire on both sides. Otherwise the wire begins to collect mostly on one side, and if you switch the way that you're wrapping it every 100, you'll end up with a wire that's spread out evenly on those magnets. I'm going to continue like this until I've made 1,500 wraps. And when I make that 1,500th wrap, I'm going to leave a pigtail of at least a foot, maybe 16 inches, before I cut the wire, and then I will take that and tape it to the opposite side of the pickup, opposite of the one I started with. We're then going to take those very small leads and solder on a more sturdy lead with which we can make our connections later on.